Diane Caldwell covered her nose, glaring at
Get her
Brenda
away from
Adams
my
with
tables.
pure disgust.
I can't breathe the same air as this.
I'm hilly humility.
The room gets dirtier every time she walks in.
Brenda straightened a napkin fold, silent, composed. Diane's voice dropped, venomous.
You are crudely her filth. Know your place.
Brenda met her eyes.
The setup is ready,
Steady.
Miss Caldwell.
Brenta?
Diane snatched her soda and poured it down Brenda's back.
Now get out of my sight.
Dead silence. But Diane just made the biggest mistake of her career. The woman standing there, soaked in soda, was hiding something that would flip Diane's world upside down within the hour. Man, pouring a drink on her like that? That's a mistake. Let's get into it. The Whitfield Grand sat on the corner of Tryon Street in uptown Charlotte, North Carolina. 22 floors of polished marble, brass elevators, and crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's houses. The kind of hotel where senators held fundraisers and CEOs signed deals over bourbon. It was owned by Whitfield Hospitality Group, a company with 43 properties across the country. And at the very top of that empire sat one man, the chairman of the board. But we'll get to him later. Right now, let's talk about Brenda Adams. Brenda was 32 years old. She had a master's degree in hospitality management from Cornell. She could have walked into any executive office in the industry and landed a six-figure position before lunch. But she didn't. Instead, 5 months ago, she applied for a part-time job as an event coordinator assistant at the Whitfield Grand. Entry level, $12 above minimum wage, a staff polo, and a name tag. Why? Because Brenda believed something most people in her position wouldn't even consider. She believed that if you want to lead an industry, you need to understand it from the floor up, not from a boardroom, not from a quarterly report, from the sweat, the overtime, the guests who snap their fingers at you like your furniture. She wanted to feel it, all of it. Her husband supported the decision completely. He admired it, actually. He told her to take as long as she needed, learn everything, talk to everyone. And when she was ready, there would be a seat waiting for her at the top. So Brenda showed up every morning at 6. She drove a modest gray sedan. She wore no jewelry except her wedding band, which she kept on a chain inside her shirt. She parked in the employee lot behind the dumpsters and walked through the service entrance like everyone else. Nobody knew. Not the front desk staff, not the valets, not the housekeepers she helped carry linens for when the elevator broke down last month, and definitely not Diane Caldwell. Diane was the regional banquet manager, 44 years old, blonde hair always pulled tight, heels that clicked like a metronome down every hallway. She'd been with the company for 6 years, and she ran the banquet division like a small kingdom. To the guests, Diane was charming. Warm smile, firm handshake. The kind of woman who remembered your drink order and your wife's birthday. To the staff, she was something else entirely. If you were white, Diane was tough but professional. She pushed hard, but she respected your space. She said please. She said good job. If you were black or brown, the mask came off. It started small. A sigh when she assigned you a task. A look that lingered a half second too long. Then it escalated. Comments about your hair, about how you spoke, about whether you really understood the standard of the hotel. And if you complained, she had a favorite line she used on the general manager, Todd Emerson. They're just too sensitive. Todd was a 53-year-old white man who had managed the Whitfield Grand for 8 years. He wore khaki pants every single day, even on holidays. He kept a stress ball on his desk, shaped like a golf ball, and he squeezed it whenever someone from HR knocked on his door. He knew about Diane. Of course he did. There were complaints. 4 formal ones. 2 from employees who eventually quit. But Diane delivered results. Her events ran on time, her client retention rate was the highest in the region. And Todd didn't like confrontation. So the complaints sat in a folder. The folder sat in a drawer. And the drawer stayed shut. Then there was Olivia Scott, 24, black, a junior server who had been at the hotel for 8 months. Olivia was sharp, quiet, and observant. She noticed everything. Which tables Diane smiled at, which staff Diane ignored, and which ones Diane destroyed. 3 weeks ago, Olivia started keeping her phone nearby during shifts. Not to scroll, not to text, to record. She hadn't told anyone yet, not even Brenda, but she had a folder on her phone labeled Insurance, and it was growing. Tonight was the annual corporate gala, a Fortune 500 client, 300 guests, a 6-figure contract, and every single person on this staff was about to collide in a way none of them expected. The gala was 6 hours away, and the banquet hall already smelled like stress. Silver polish, starched tablecloths, the sharp tang of industrial cleaner on marble floors. Staff moved between tables in quiet choreography, adjusting forks, aligning chairs, folding napkins into perfect fans. Brenda was stationed at the far end of the hall, working on centerpieces. White roses, eucalyptus stems, tall glass vases that caught the light from the chandeliers above. She'd arranged 64 of them over the past 3 hours. Each one is identical. Each one measured to the inch. She was good at this. She knew she was good at this. Then Diane walked in. The clicking of her heels hit the marble like a countdown. Every head in the room tilted slightly. Not to look. Nobody dared look directly. Just to track. To know where she was. Like animals sensing a predator entering the clearing. Diane stopped in the center of the room. She scanned the tables with slow, deliberate eyes. Her clipboard was tucked under one arm. Her mouth was a thin, pressed line. She walked to table 12. A white server named Colin had set it. Diane picked up a wine glass, held it to the light, set it back down. Beautiful work, Colin. Spotless. Colin exhaled. He nodded and moved on. Then Diane turned. She walked straight toward Brenda's section. Table 22. Identical setup. Same glasses. Same silverware. Same napkin fold. Brenda had checked it twice. Diane picked up a wine glass. She held it to the light the same way she'd held Colin's. She turned it. Then she set it down hard enough to make the silverware rattle. This is sloppy. Brenda's hands stilled. The glass has a smudge. The napkin fold is uneven. And these flowers. Diane grabbed a rose from the vase and held it up like evidence in a courtroom. This stem is crooked. Do you even care about quality? Or is that just not something your people prioritize? The words landed like a slap. 2 servers nearby stopped what they were doing. One looked at the floor. The other bit her lip and walked away. Brenda took a breath. Slow. Controlled. I'll redo the arrangement, Miss Caldwell. You'll redo the entire table. And when you're done, I want you on ice duty. The kitchen needs 60 pounds hauled to the service bar. Ice duty. Manual labor. Brenda had a coordinator title. She was supposed to be managing logistics for the event, not hauling bags of ice like a first-day temp. But she nodded, and she started pulling apart the centerpiece she'd spent 20 minutes perfecting. Diane watched her for a moment, then turned on her heel and walked away. Her perfume hung in the air behind her, heavy, floral, suffocating. That was 10 in the morning. By noon, it got worse. Diane had changed the seating chart. The original layout had been finalized 3 days ago. Brenda had organized it herself, cross-referencing the client's guest list, dietary restrictions, and VIP preferences. It had taken her 4 hours. Todd had signed off on it, but sometime between 11 and noon, Diane had walked into the office, pulled up the file on the shared computer, and rearranged half the tables. No note, no email, no explanation. Brenda didn't know until Todd called her into his office. He was sitting behind his desk, squeezing that golf ball stress toy. The blinds were half closed. The room smelled like cold coffee and carpet cleaner. "Brenda, we have a problem." She stood in the doorway, still in her polo, still smelling faintly of silver polish. "The seating chart is wrong. Table assignments don't match the client's VIP list. If this doesn't get fixed in the next 2 hours, we're going to have a major issue tonight." Brenda blinked. "Mr. Emerson, I finalized that chart on Tuesday. You approved it yourself." "Well, something changed, and your name is on the file." "Because I created the original file, but someone edited it after me. If you check the revision history..." The door opened behind her. Diane walked in like she owned the room, which, in many ways, she did. "Todd, I heard there's a seating issue?" Her voice was silk, concerned, helpful. Todd looked relieved. "Yeah, Brenda's chart has errors, major ones." Diane tilted her head and looked at Brenda, the way you'd look at a child who broke a plate. "Oh, Brenda, sweetheart, did you mix up the tables again?" Again. As if this had happened before. It hadn't. Ever. "I didn't mix up anything, Miss Caldwell. The file was edited after I saved it." Diane let out a small laugh. Light. Dismissive. "Brenda, nobody else touches the seating charts. That's your responsibility. I shouldn't have to double-check your work on top of everything else I'm managing today." She turned to Todd. "I'll fix it myself. It's fine. I just wish I didn't have to keep cleaning up after her." Todd nodded. He didn't ask about revision history. He didn't check the file. He just squeezed his stress ball and said, "Brenda, let Diane handle the chart. You go help the kitchen with setup." Kitchen setup. That meant washing trays, stacking plates, and staying out of sight. Brenda looked at Todd. She looked at Diane. She saw exactly what was happening. 2 people who had decided that she was the problem before she ever opened her mouth. She nodded. "Yes, sir." She turned and walked out. In the hallway, Olivia was waiting. She had a tray of water glasses in her hands, but her eyes were locked on Brenda's face. "I saw her do it," Olivia whispered. "I saw Diane at the computer at 11:15. She was editing the seating file." Brenda stopped walking. "You saw her?" "I was refilling the printer paper in the office. She didn't notice me. She changed at least 8 tables, then closed the file and walked out." Brenda closed her eyes. She let the air out slow. "Thank you, Olivia." "Brenda, you need to report this. This is sabotage." "I know what it is." "Then why aren't you—" "Not yet." Olivia stared at her. "What do you mean, not yet?" Brenda opened her eyes. There was something in them that Olivia hadn't seen before. Not anger, not sadness. Something quieter. Something patient. "I mean, not yet." She pulled her phone from her back pocket and stepped into the stairwell. The heavy fire door closed behind her with a metallic click. The air was cooler here. It smelled like concrete and recycled ventilation. She dialed. It rang twice. "Hey." Carlton's voice was low and warm, the kind of voice that filled a room even through a phone speaker. "Hey," Brenda said. She leaned against the wall. Her shoulders dropped for the first time all day. "How's it going?" She paused. Then she exhaled. "It's getting worse." "Tell me." She sabotaged my seating chart, blamed me in front of Todd. He didn't even check, just sent me to wash dishes. Silence on the other end. Not the empty kind, the kind that meant he was listening with his whole body. And this morning, she told the staff I contaminate the room by being in it. More silence. Then Carlton spoke. Quiet, measured. Brenda, I need you to hear me. Tonight, I'm coming to the hotel. I know, the board inspection. Yes, but I need you to understand something. Whatever I see when I walk through those doors, I'm not going to look away. Not tonight. Brenda pressed the phone against her ear. She could hear him breathing. Steady. Certain. Just get through the next few hours, he said. Can you do that? She stood up straight, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Yeah, I can do that. That's my girl. She hung up. She stood in the stairwell for 10 more seconds. Then she walked back out into the hallway, into the noise, into the chaos, and straight toward the kitchen. The afternoon was just beginning, and Diane Caldwell had no idea what was coming. 3 hours before the gala. The kitchen was a furnace of noise and steam, pots clanging, burners hissing, the head chef barking orders in a voice that could cut through concrete. The air tasted like garlic, butter, and sweat. Brenda stood at the industrial sink, scrubbing sheet trays with a steel wool pad. Hot water ran over her knuckles until they turned raw. Her polo was damp at the collar. Her back ached from standing since 6 a.m. This wasn't her job. She knew it. Everyone in the kitchen knew it. But nobody said a word. She scrubbed, she stacked, she carried. At 2:15, Diane appeared in the kitchen doorway. She didn't step inside. She never stepped inside the kitchen. Too hot, too loud, too beneath her. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching Brenda work like she was observing an animal at the zoo. At least she's useful for something, Diane said, to no one in particular, but loud enough. Always loud enough. A prep cook nearby kept his eyes on his cutting board. His knife moved faster. Diane straightened up and raised her voice. Brenda, when you're done playing dishwasher, I need you in the banquet hall. The stage setup is wrong. Podium's on the left. It should be on the right. Brenda set down the tray, dried her hands on a towel that was already soaked through. She walked past Diane without a word, through the service corridor and into the banquet hall. The podium was on the right, exactly where the client had requested it. Brenda had confirmed the placement herself yesterday with the audiovisual team. She had the email on her phone. She stood there, staring at it. Right side. Correct position. Nothing wrong. Diane walked in behind her, heels clicking. Well, move it. Ms. Caldwell, the client requested the podium on the right. I have the confirmation email. I don't care what email you have. I said move it to the left. But the client, did I stutter? The words hit the air like a door slamming shut. 2 servers setting tables nearby froze mid-motion. Diane stepped closer, close enough for Brenda to smell her perfume, that heavy, cloying floral that clung to everything like a warning. Let me make this very clear, Brenda. You don't think here. You don't decide here. You do what I tell you. Period. The fact that I have to repeat this to you every single day tells me everything I need to know about what you're capable of. Brenda held her gaze. 3 seconds. 5. 7. Then she walked to the podium and began dragging it to the left side of the stage. Alone, it weighed at least 80 pounds. The wooden base scraped against the marble floor with a sound that made everyone wince. Diane watched. She didn't offer to help. She didn't call anyone to assist. She just watched, one hand on her hip, head tilted slightly, the way someone watches a mule pull a cart. When Brenda finished, she was breathing hard. A line of sweat ran down her temple. "Good," Diane said. "Now go clean yourself up. You look disgusting. And for God's sake, stay out of sight when the guests start arriving. The last thing this event needs is you greeting people at the door." She turned and walked away. Her heels echoed through the hall like a metronome counting down. Brenda stood next to the podium she'd just moved. Her arms were shaking. Not from the weight, from everything else. 4:30 in the afternoon, 90 minutes before doors opened. The banquet hall was nearly ready. Tables gleamed under chandelier light. Ice sculptures glistened at the buffet station. The string quartet was setting up in the corner, tuning their instruments in soft, wandering notes. Brenda was adjusting the microphone at the podium when Diane came back. This time, she wasn't alone. 3 junior servers trailed behind her, carrying final supplies. Diane stopped at the center of the room and clapped her hands once. "Listen up, everyone. Final check. I want every glass polished. Every napkin is straight. Every chair pushed in exactly 2 inches from the table edge. This is a 6-figure client. If anything goes wrong tonight, I will personally make sure the person responsible never works in this city again." Her eyes swept the room. Then they landed on Brenda. "And Brenda, you're on coat check." Coat check, a closet by the entrance, out of sight, out of the event, invisible. "Ms. Caldwell, I'm assigned to coordinate—" "You were assigned, past tense. I'm reassigning you. Coat check." "Back corner. Don't come out unless someone asks for their jacket." Brenda's lips pressed together. "Is there a problem?" Diane asked. Her voice rose just enough to make sure everyone heard. "Because if you can't handle hanging up coats, I really don't know what to do with you." Someone behind Brenda let out a small breath. Olivia. Standing 3 tables away with a tray of champagne flutes. Her phone was in her apron pocket. The camera lens was facing outward. Brenda shook her head slowly. "No problem, Miss Caldwell." "Wonderful. And Brenda, smile. You're representing the hotel tonight. Try not to scare anyone." Diane laughed at her own words, a short, brittle sound like glass cracking. Then she walked away, clipboard in hand, barking orders at the string quartet about volume levels. Brenda walked to the coat check closet. It was a narrow room near the service entrance. No windows. A single fluorescent light that buzzed overhead. Wire hangers lined a metal rack that smelled like rust and old mothballs. She stepped inside and stood there for a moment. Alone. The door was still open. Through it, she could see the banquet hall shimmering with golden light. She could hear the quartet playing something soft and classical. She could smell the roses from the centerpieces she'd arranged that morning, the ones Diane had called sloppy. She took one breath, then another. Then she pulled out her phone and opened her text messages. One new message from Carlton, sent 12 minutes ago. "Leaving now. See you soon." She read it twice. Then she put the phone away and hung the first empty hanger on the rack. Somewhere across the hotel, Russell Grant was in the security office reviewing tonight's protocol. His radio crackled with updates. Extra coverage for the main entrance. Additional screening at the parking garage. VIP arrival estimated at 6:15. Russell pulled out a printed photograph from a manila envelope. A headshot of Carlton Adams. He pinned it to the briefing board and circled it in red marker. "This is the chairman of the board," he told his team. "When he arrives, full protocol, main entrance, no delays. You address him as Chairman Adams. Understood?" 4 security officers nodded in unison. Russell checked his watch. 1 hour and 10 minutes. Back in the coat check closet, Brenda heard Diane's voice echo through the hall one more time. If I see one fingerprint on one glass, somebody's going home tonight, and it won't be me. Brenda hung another empty hanger on the rack. The wire scraped against the metal bar. She closed her eyes. She waited. The fluorescent light buzzed above her like a timer winding down. Outside, the string quartet shifted into something slower, deeper. The banquet hall hummed with final preparations.
Silver clinking, chairs adjusting, Diane's heels clicking back and forth across the marble. In the parking garage, a black SUV turned off the highway and headed toward uptown Charlotte. The driver checked the mirror. The man in the back seat adjusted his cufflinks. He looked out the window at the city skyline, catching the last light of the evening. His phone sat on the leather seat beside him. The last text he'd sent still glowed on the screen. Leaving now. See you soon.
He didn't text again. He didn't need to. In 52 minutes, he would walk through the front doors of the Whitfield Grand. Russell Grant would meet him with a firm handshake and 2 words that would echo through every radio in the building. And everything would change.
Yo, I need to pause here because I'm heated. Like, genuinely heated. This woman got humiliated, sabotaged, shoved in a coat closet, and nobody said a thing. Not one person. That silence right there, that's what kills me, you guys. The black SUV pulled into the circular driveway of the Whitfield Grand. Its tires rolled slow and quiet across the polished stone. The headlights swept across the entrance where Russell Grant stood waiting, flanked by 2 security officers in dark suits. The rear door opened. Carlton Adams stepped out. He was tall, 6'2", dark skin, a navy suit that fit like it was stitched onto his body. Silver cufflinks catching the last glow of sunset. He moved with the kind of stillness that only comes from knowing exactly who you are and exactly what you own. Russell stepped forward and extended his hand. Good evening, Chairman Adams. Welcome to the Whitfield Grand. The words traveled through Russell's radio, through every earpiece in the building, through the front desk, through the security office, through the service corridor. Chairman Adams. At the front desk, a receptionist nearly knocked over her water bottle. In the kitchen, the head chef straightened his coat. In the hallway outside Todd Emerson's office, an assistant knocked on his door and whispered 2 words that made the color drain from his face. He's here. Todd stood up so fast, his chair rolled into the wall behind him. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the door, shoved his arms through the sleeves, and half-jogged toward the lobby. His tie was crooked. His hands were shaking. He squeezed them into fists to make them stop. In the banquet hall, the news hit like a shockwave. Diane heard it through the event coordinator's radio, a crackle of static, then Russell's voice. Chairman Adams has arrived. Main entrance. All positions. Diane's eyes went wide. She smoothed her hair. She adjusted her blazer. She grabbed a breath mint from her pocket and crushed it between her teeth. This was her moment. The chairman of the board, here, tonight, at her event. This was her chance to shine, to impress, to climb. She walked quickly through the service corridor, heels hammering the floor. She burst into the lobby just as Todd arrived from the opposite hallway. They exchanged a glance, 2 people suddenly united by the same desperate need to perform. Carlton was standing in the center of the lobby, Russell beside him, 2 security officers behind. He was looking around slowly, taking in the marble, the chandeliers, the fresh flowers on the reception desk. His face revealed nothing. Diane stepped forward first, bright smile,
extended hand, her voice pitched higher than usual, warm, eager, rehearsed. "Chairman Adams, what an absolute honor. I'm Diane Caldwell, Regional Banquet Manager. I oversee tonight's gala, and I have to say, everything is running beautifully. We are so thrilled to have you here." Carlton looked at her hand. He didn't take it. His eyes moved past her, past Todd, past the reception desk, down the hallway, toward the service corridor, toward the narrow room near the entrance with no windows and one fluorescent light, the coat check closet. Brenda was stepping out. She'd heard the radios. She'd heard the name. She stood in the hallway in her wrinkled, soda-stained polo, her name tag slightly crooked, her hands still raw from scrubbing trays. Carlton saw her, and something shifted in his face. Not anger, not yet. Something deeper, something slower. Like watching a crack spread across glass before it shatters. He walked past Diane, past Todd, past two security officers who stepped aside without a word. He crossed the lobby in long, steady strides. He reached Brenda. He stopped. He looked at her shirt, the dark stain down the back, the dried streaks of soda on her collar, the smell of industrial cleaner on her hands. He put his arm around her, gently, like she was the only person in the building. What happened? His voice was quiet, but in the silence of that lobby, it carried like thunder. Brenda looked up at him. For the first time all day, her composure cracked, just slightly. A tremor at the corner of her mouth, a brightness in her eyes that she blinked away before it fell. "Long day," she said. "Tell me." Behind them, Diane stood frozen. Her hand was still extended in the air where Carlton had ignored it. Her smile was still on her face, but it had gone stiff, plastic, like a mask that forgot to come off. Her eyes moved between Carlton and Brenda, the arm around her shoulder, the closeness, the way he looked at her. Then the connection hit. Adams, Chairman Adams, Brenda Adams. The color drained from Diane's face so fast it was almost visible, like watching ink disappear from paper. Todd's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. No sound came out. Carlton turned his head. He looked directly at Russell. "I want to know exactly what happened to my wife today. Every single detail. And I want to see the security footage from this building. All of it." The word wife landed on the lobby like a bomb. Diane took one step back. Her heel caught the edge of the marble tile and she stumbled slightly. She caught herself on the reception desk. Brenda looked at Diane, calm, still. And for the first time that day, she spoke without being asked. "Olivia has it on video." The security office was small, gray walls, 3 monitors, a desk covered in radios and clipboards. It smelled like stale coffee and electrical wiring. Carlton stood in the center of the room, arms folded, silent. Russell stood by the door. The hotel's HR director, a woman named Patricia Wells, sat at the desk with her hands clasped tight. Olivia walked in, holding her phone like a grenade. She unlocked it, opened the folder labeled Insurance, and pressed play. The first video. Diane's voice, sharp, dripping with contempt. "I can't breathe the same air as this. The room gets dirtier every time she walks in." Carlton's jaw tightened. The second clip, Diane holding up the rose from Brenda's centerpiece. "Is that just not something your people prioritize?" Patricia covered her mouth. The third clip, Diane watching Brenda drag the 80-pound podium across the stage. Alone. Smiling. Then the final video. The soda. Diane grabbing the cup, pouring it slowly down Brenda's back, the liquid darkening her polo in a long streak. Diane's laughter.
Now you match the mess you already are. Russell paused the video. Silence except for the hum of the monitors. Carlton spoke. One sentence. Bring her in. 2 minutes later, Diane walked through the door, blazer buttoned, chin up, hands trembling at her sides. She tried a smile first. Chairman Adams, I want you to know that tonight's event is completely under control. Whatever misunderstanding, sit down. She sat.
Carlton spoke the way a man speaks when the building has his name on the deed. I just watched 4 videos of you harassing, humiliating, and physically assaulting a member of this staff. I want your explanation. Choose carefully. Diane's smile collapsed. I was joking. The soda was an accident. She's blowing this out of proportion. I didn't know. Didn't know what? I didn't know she was my wife? Carlton leaned forward. So if she wasn't my wife, this would be acceptable? Diane opened her mouth. Nothing came out. That's what I thought. He turned to Patricia. Effective immediately. Diane Caldwell is suspended without pay pending full investigation. I want every complaint ever filed against her pulled from records. Every one. And I want her off this property within 10 minutes. Patricia nodded and began typing. Diane's composure broke. Her voice cracked. Please, I've been with this company for 6 years. This will ruin me. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Every single day. He turned to Russell. Escort her out. Russell opened the door. 2 officers were waiting. Diane stood on unsteady legs, mascara smudging at the corners. She walked between the officers, clutching her purse like a shield. The lobby staff watched in silence as she crossed the marble floor and pushed through the glass doors into the evening air. Carlton wasn't finished. Where is Todd Emerson? Todd was in his office, behind his desk, squeezing his stress ball with both hands. Carlton stood in his doorway. How many complaints were filed against Diane? Todd swallowed. A few. How many? 4 formally, maybe more informally. And what did you do? Todd stared at his desk. That's your answer. Carlton nodded. You're on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending review. Formal notice from HR by morning. Todd didn't argue. He set the stress ball down and reached for his jacket. Carlton turned back one last time. Next time someone tells you they're being mistreated, try listening. It's free. He walked back to the security office. Olivia was still standing there, phone in hand. He stopped and extended his hand. Thank you. What you did took courage. You have my word. No retaliation. Not now. Not ever. Olivia shook his hand. Firm grip, steady eyes, one nod. Then Carlton walked down the hallway to the coat check closet. Brenda was waiting. He took her hand. They walked together through the service corridor, past the kitchen, past the banquet hall shimmering with golden light and string music. Neither said a word. They didn't need to. The investigation started the next morning. Carlton didn't wait for HR to schedule meetings. He didn't wait for legal to draft memos. He picked up his phone at 7 a.m. and called the chief operating officer of Whitfield Hospitality Group directly. I want a full internal investigation. Not just this property, all 43. Every complaint filed in the last 5 years involving discrimination, harassment, or hostile work environment. I want names, I want dates, I want documentation, and I want it on my desk in 2 weeks. By noon, a team of 4 investigators arrived at the Whitfield Grand. They set up in a conference room on the 3rd floor. Laptop screens glowing, legal pads stacked, a digital recorder on the table. They started with Olivia. She sat across from them in her server uniform, hands folded, voice steady. She told them everything. The comments, the reassignments, the way Diane spoke to white employees versus black employees, the tone, the language, the looks. Then she handed over her phone. The investigators watched every video, twice. After Olivia, they interviewed 9 more employees, current staff, former staff, people who had quit without explanation, people who had filed complaints that went nowhere. A housekeeper named Gloria Davis told them Diane once refused to ride the same elevator with her. "She looked at me like I was contagious," Gloria said. Then she waited for the next one. A former valet named James Wilson said Diane reported him for theft after he parked a guest's car 3 spots away from the designated area. No theft occurred. He was fired anyway. No investigation, no appeal. A line cook named Sandra Moore described how Diane walked into the kitchen one evening and said, in front of the entire staff, "Something smells wrong in here, and it's not the food." She was looking directly at the 2 black cooks on the line. 4 formal complaints, 12 informal reports, 3 resignations directly linked to Diane's behavior. All documented, all ignored. Todd Emerson's signature was on 4 of the dismissal forms. His handwriting was on the notes that read, "Resolved. No further action needed." The pattern was undeniable, and it stretched back 3 full years. On day 4, the story broke. Olivia had posted the soda video on her personal social media, with Brenda's permission. She didn't add commentary. She didn't need to. The footage spoke for itself. Diane's voice, the slow pour, the laughter, Brenda standing there soaked and silent. 36 hours later, the video had 14 million views. Local Charlotte news picked it up first. A reporter stood outside the Whitfield Grand with a microphone, the hotel's gold logo gleaming behind her. Then, national outlets followed. Cable news panels debated it. Opinion columns dissected it. The headlines spread across every platform like wildfire. Hotel manager pours soda on employee. Turns out she's the chairman's wife. Social media erupted. Comments poured in by the thousands. Former employees came forward publicly. People who had stayed silent for years suddenly had a platform, and they used it. Diane's name trended for 3 consecutive days. Her LinkedIn profile was flooded with messages. Her professional network collapsed overnight. Former colleagues distanced themselves publicly. One posted a statement that read, "I witnessed Diane's behavior firsthand, and I regret not speaking up sooner." On day 8, Diane issued a public apology through a prepared statement. It was written by a crisis management firm. The language was careful, polished, and hollow. "I deeply regret any actions that may have caused harm. I am committed to learning and growing from this experience." The internet didn't buy it. The top comment under every repost was the same. She's not sorry she did it. She's sorry she got caught. On day 12, the investigation concluded. Whitfield Hospitality Group released an official statement. Diane Caldwell was terminated for cause. Effective immediately. No severance, no reference letter, no option for rehire at any property within the company. Todd Emerson was formally demoted from general manager to assistant operations manager at a smaller property in a different state. His salary was cut. His authority was stripped. His name was removed from the Whitfield Grand's leadership directory. Both faced potential civil liability. Brenda filed a formal complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The company's legal team cooperated fully, turning over every document, every video, every internal communication related to the case. On day 19, Diane was served with a civil lawsuit. The details weren't complicated. workplace harassment, racial discrimination, hostile work environment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The evidence was overwhelming. The videos alone were enough. Diane's attorney advised her to settle. She resisted at first. Then she saw the case file, 400 pages of testimony, documentation, and footage. She settled. The terms were confidential, but the message was not. The ripple effect went far beyond one hotel. Carlton called a company-wide leadership meeting. Every general manager, every regional director, every HR lead. A mandatory video conference that lasted 3 hours. He stood in front of the camera in his office. No notes, no teleprompter. What happened at the Whitfield Grand was not an isolated incident. It was a systemic failure, a failure of leadership, a failure of accountability. And it happened because people in positions of power chose silence over action. He paused. That ends today. Whitfield Hospitality Group announced a complete overhaul of its workplace policies. Mandatory bias training for every employee, from executive leadership to housekeeping. An anonymous reporting hotline staffed by an independent third party. A zero-tolerance policy for discrimination with immediate investigation protocols. And one more thing. Carlton created a new position within the company, Vice President of Workplace Culture, a role designed to ensure that what happened to Brenda, and to Gloria, and James, and Sandra, and every employee who suffered in silence, would never happen again. He offered the position to one person, Brenda.
She didn't answer right away. She sat in their living room that evening, still in her jeans, still wearing the chain around her neck that held her wedding ring during work hours. She turned the offer over in her mind the way she'd turned those napkins that morning. Carefully, deliberately, with precision. Then she said yes. Not because she wanted a title, not because she wanted power, because she knew what it felt like to stand in a coat closet with the door open, watching everyone pretend nothing was wrong. And she was done pretending. 6 months later, Brenda Adams sat behind a mahogany desk on the 14th floor of Whitfield Hospitality Group headquarters. Downtown Charlotte skyline stretched outside her window, glass towers catching morning sun, traffic moving in slow ribbons far below. On her desk, a framed photo of her and Carlton on their wedding day, a small potted succulent Olivia had given her on her first day in the new role, and a printed copy of the company's updated anti-discrimination policy. 42 pages, every word reviewed by Brenda herself. Vice President of Workplace Culture. The title still felt new, but the work didn't. The work felt like breathing. In her first 3 months, Brenda visited 19 of the company's 43 properties. She sat in break rooms. She ate in staff cafeterias. She listened. Not from a boardroom, not from a conference call. Face to face, eye to eye. She heard stories that sounded exactly like hers. Different names, different cities, same silence. A bellhop in Atlanta who was told he spoke too black for the front desk. A housekeeper in Dallas whose schedule was cut every time she reported a safety concern. A server in Boston who watched a manager throw a plate at a busboy and call it motivation. Brenda documented every story. She built a database. She created a reporting system that didn't route through the same managers who caused the problems. Independent, anonymous, protected. In 6 months, 216 reports were filed across the company. 89 investigations were opened. 14 employees were terminated.
6 were retrained. 3 properties replaced their entire management teams. The anonymous hotline received its first call on a Tuesday at 9:14 in the morning. A young woman's voice, shaking but determined. "I don't know if anyone will actually do something, but I need to say this out loud." Someone did something. Olivia Scott was promoted to event coordinator at the Whitfield Grand. Full title, full salary, full benefits. She still kept her phone close during shifts, old habit, but she didn't need the insurance folder anymore. Gloria Davis, the housekeeper who wouldn't ride the elevator with Diane, was offered back pay and a formal apology from the company. She cried when she received the letter, not because of the money, because someone finally said, "We believe you." James Wilson, the valet who was wrongfully terminated, was contacted by Whitfield's legal team. They offered him reinstatement and compensation. He declined the job. He'd moved on. But he accepted the apology. He said it was the first time in 3 years anyone admitted he'd done nothing wrong. Diane Caldwell never worked in hospitality again. Her name had become synonymous with the kind of cruelty that companies now train their employees to recognize. She moved out of Charlotte, deleted her social media, disappeared into the kind of silence she once forced on others. Todd Emerson finished his demotion quietly. He managed a 60-room property in a small town outside Richmond. He never filed another complaint. Whether he changed or simply learned to fear consequences, nobody could say for certain. Carlton continued to lead the company, but something shifted in how he led. He started every board meeting with a simple question: what are we not seeing? It became a company tradition, a reminder that the most dangerous problems are the ones leadership chooses not to look at. And Brenda? Brenda never forgot the coat check closet. She kept a wire hanger from that night in her office desk drawer, not as a trophy, as a reminder of the buzzing fluorescent light, the smell of mothballs,
The sound of Diane's heels clicking away.
She kept it because she never wanted to become someone who forgets what the floor feels like. So, this story? Made up. Totally fiction. But be real with me for a sec. That feeling when your boss treats you like trash and everyone just watches? That ain't fiction. That's somebody's life right now. And that's why I had to share this, for real. Most people who face what Brenda faced don't have a husband who's the chairman. They don't get a viral video. They don't get a company-wide overhaul. They get silence. They get pushed out. They get forgotten. But that doesn't mean nothing can change. It means the change has to come from the people watching, from the Olivias, the ones brave enough to press the record, the ones who refuse to look away. If this story hit you somewhere deep, go ahead and smash that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe so you never miss the next one. Because the real question isn't whether this happens. The real question is, if nobody's recording, does anyone ever find out?